What you gon' be? A hustler, cuss. They buying, we selling, but everything legal, bro. Snooze too long, then it's hard for you to waking up. Never had an office job, but I stack paper up. 20 years old, ain't too early for no credit, bro. 30 years old, ain't too late to get your credit up. What you gon' do if they issue you a pay cut? And all your money gone from your savings you was stacking up. All we tryna say is, don't be him home. Muscle up with Jim, not the gym with the Y home. Really take flight, not just get fly home. Get in the car to make them feel some type of way like rich home. What we tryna say is, you gotta make investment. Paper money won't last if you don't invest it. Something like Credit Suite, cleaning up your messes. Learn the equity, even how to do your taxes. If you can buy one house, you can flip two. If you can buy one car, then you can buy two. If you ever save $1,000, you can save two. Stop working hard, let the money do the work for you. You can buy one house, you can flip two. If you can buy one car, then you can buy two. If you ever save $1,000, you can turn it into two. Stop working hard, let the money do the work for you. Stop working hard, let the money do the work for you.
What's gonna get you out that bed? What's gonna motivate you today? Let me tell you, what's your excuse today? What you gonna tell me today? Why you not gonna do what you need to do right now? What you need to do right now? Let's go, man. Let's go. Get him out that bed. Get him out that bed. Get the move. Stop the excuses.
Now we're live. This is Mike Clark, Kill Procrastination. Got a fire episode today, fire interview with Ernest Clark. This is my cousin. Once again, you guys hear Clark on the end. Don't we look alike? We look somewhat alike, you know what I'm saying? But this is one of my favorite cousins, man. He truly inspired me. I think this is going to be a episode that you guys are going to love, whether you're young or old. You're going to be able to apply this to your life. Not only was he a high-performing athlete in high school, he was also a high-performing athlete in college. Also went to the military for a little bit. And the bulk of this conversation is going to be is about sales. He's also a high sales manager. And I think this is something you guys definitely want to hear. All right. But Ernie, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing pretty good, cuz. So just wanted to thank you again, just having me on Kill Procrastination. You know, it's definitely an honor to be able to even speak to as far as your audience and just give them some advice, kind of just telling them the journey that I took in life. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ernest Clark, you know, born and raised South Bend, Indiana, went to Washington High School, grew up in South Bend. Now I'm actually living in Westfield, Indiana, which is right outside of Indianapolis. So,
man, that's beautiful, man. I want to jump right into it for sure. I want to jump right into it. Can we go into? I want to focus on your athletic abilities, your time in high school and college, and how that actually shaped who you are as a person. So we can dive a little bit into your track performance and how you did well in that, and how that transitioned into college. Can you just speak a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. So as far as for me, man, sports is definitely an interesting journey for me. So went to Washington High School, ran track, played football there. Great experience. Freshman year, like I said, was definitely one of those things where I got a lot of exposure as far as freshman year coming into high school. So play varsity football. It was one of those things. Dressed, but didn't really get too much playing time, which still, like I said, as long as I dressed, I was okay with it. But ran track. Running track was definitely one of my things that, I think it kind of just came natural. For me, it was one of those things I still had to work hard at. So was definitely a performer as far as freshman year. It was one of those things where it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work where I had to, do a lot of training. I was new as far as being at the school. So it was already athletes there who were already faster than me. So it was one of those things where, I had to put a lot of work into it, but it was a great experience. I ran track, did want to show as far as that jacket just to show. So, just one of those things where, had a lot of good things that came as far as with the app, what I'm saying, as far as when I was there. So just some of the stuff that actually we did as far as some of me and my team members, NIC champions, 4x4 relays, regional qualifier, 4x4, state qualifier, 4x1, Goshen relays, 4x1 champions, city champions, 4x4, 4x1, multiple years on here, regional qualifier, state qualifier, 4x4, Goshen relay champions, NIC champions. So just some of the stuff that I do have as far as on the jacket.
Look, that man was that guy in high school. That's what he's saying. He was that guy.
So yeah, track, like I said, was something that I was definitely known for. It was one of those things I was just grateful to even have the opportunity to even run in school and to be able to be even competitive as far as, in high school.
No, and what you showed us was, like you said, it was work. From the time you got there freshman year, you worked your ass off. Apparently, I mean, look, you got it, you got the proof right there. And I want you guys to understand that, like, at an early age, I mean, you're talking about going to high school at 16 and, developing that mindset that I got to work hard to, achieve what I want to achieve. And not only that, let me give you guys a little background because, I went to Clay High School and I was in school before he was, I transitioned out of high school, went straight to college, but I did try to participate in a lot of sports, but I really didn't know, that the game started as soon as you got freshman year. I didn't know that people were looking at you for colleges. That part was never, it never clicked to me. I was just kind of like wanting to do it, never really fully putting the work in. So I didn't get to achieve what, my cousin Ernest achieved, which, hats off to him. But, was that the mindset when you went in freshman year that that, hey, I'm going to try to, work my butt off from day one to get yourself to college? Because I know we're going to talk about that soon, but was that your mindset at that age?
You know what? At the time going into high school, I didn't really know what to expect. It was one of those things where, going into that different environment, being at a bigger school, being around, older people at that time, especially, you had your seniors there. It was one of those things where I had people that believed in me, so, having people that believe in you can definitely go a long way. So, Pastor Davidson, he was my track coach. He really just believed in me, and he just, he expected a lot out of me. So, it's one of those things where if people are expecting stuff out of you, they believing in you, you don't want to let those people down. So, I just worked hard at it. It was one of those things, you work hard at something, eventually you're going to start seeing results. So every day I just try to make it a grind to be like, listen, I'm going to make sure I'm doing my thing in school. I'm working at, my grades. And when I go to practice, I'm a practice. It's one of those things, practice make perfect. You know what I'm saying? So I just try to, every time I just try to perfect my craft. So it was just, it was something new. It was something new as far as just being in that type of atmosphere. My team accepted me and I was able to compete. It was definitely one of those things where it was nerve-wracking. I didn't know that I was going to be, a top performing athlete. But what I did know was I was going to outwork that next person, that person that was above me. My goal was to get to your level. And then once I get to your level, that person who was faster than you, I'm going to get to his level. So I just kind of kept that mindset. And that mindset just took me, like I said, just kept taking me up, and up. So,
No, so one of the things you touched on briefly, like, is one, not necessarily network, but the foundation that you had around you, and then also the community you had around you. That, like you said, that support system. I think that's very, very big. And I understand there's some people on my at least that listens to this, or may not have that support system. Understand that community can come from anywhere. Like you said, it came from a team. You also had your outside, of course, your family. But for the people that don't have that, understand you just got to find like-minded individuals and surround yourself with those people.
Right.
Because like I said, it motivates you. It does motivate you to be around people that's succeeding. Like, man, look, if he could be there, I could be here. And that's one of the things I talk about, on my real estate journey, interviewing people, talking to other individuals and understanding like this game is not as complicated as I thought it was going to be. I've now surrounded myself with other people that are doing the exact same thing. I'm like, now my goal is to be where he's at.
Right.
I see the transition, how that works. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So can you go ahead and now we're talking about your college career. Can you talk briefly about that? There's a powerful story in here, you guys. My bad. But there is a powerful story in here, you guys, and I want you guys to truly understand, how you have to be in certain situations. So we'll break it down once Ernest gets there.
Right. And then one thing I want to touch on is because you made a great point as far as with networking. It's one of those things. Networking can take you, it can take you a long way. So even being in high school, you start networking with those people who's top athletes. You start being around those people who, want better for themselves, which once you start being around those type of people, you start feeding off that energy. It's only going to want to make you do better. So that actually played a big role in my life. I was around a lot of great athletes who they just wanted better for themselves. So, when they wanted better for themselves, like I said, I'm always trying to get to that next person that's, above me. So like I said, high school it was great for me, man. Going into high school and like I said, going into college was one of those things. It was a journey. And for me, like I said, I was a top athlete. Senior year, I end up getting hurt. So giving you the backslash story. So was running track, was ranked in the state 100, 200, 400. And I had a lot of schools looking at me. Not only for track, but I had schools looking at me for football and track. So, I was at times where I'm trying to double dip. I got schools wanting me to run and also play football. So a little bit about as far as what happened to me as far as my senior year. Senior year, I was as far as in sectionals. Had some coaches there as far as looking at me. Had Purdue University there. The University of Cincinnati was there. Siena Heights was there. These schools wanted me to run there. They wanted me to run. And I remember the school that I was going to go to was Purdue University. So I was really, really in tune. Like, man, I hope this coach is here. I'm hyped up, trying to warm up. What I'm saying? Sectionals. I'm ranked already. So I had a lot of pressure. I had a lot of weight on my shoulders. Where it's like, all right, I need to really take this moment and I need to make this my moment. So I really need to let that sink in so I can perform well, so I can get where I want to be. Well, it didn't work out like that. I remember I was running the 100-yard dash, sectional time, and I'm running and I end up getting hurt. Pulled both my hamstrings, and I end up looking over in the stands, and this was at Penn High School, never forget. And the coach got up and he left. So that was definitely an eye opener for me in life, because when I watched that coach get up and leave, it was just one of those things where life, everything just sunk in right at that moment. It was one of those things where I really didn't even care about my hamstrings, because now in my head, I'm like, dang, where does life take me now? Where am I going to go now? My whole thing was, I thought that I was going to be pursuing as far as this journey, as far as with track going into college, running there, being a top performer as far as in college. But seeing this coach leave, was one of those things where it definitely hit home. But I didn't let that, deter me away from being a top performer. So one thing that I did was I just kept working. July hit, I graduated high school, July hit. I still didn't know what college I was going to go to. I think it was like July 15th. I had this random coach just call my phone. He called me. He's like, hey, listen, Ernest, I know who you are. I know everything about you. I know what you did as far as your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year. I know as far as you got hurt, but I believe in you. And hearing that come from a stranger, that I don't even know, and then being able to spit these results out, that really hit home for me. It's like, man, I got somebody who believed in me. It's like going back to Pastor Davidson. He believed in me. So that made me actually want to work hard. So hearing somebody else that believed in me and they've been following me for so long, I'm like, hey, I got to hear what this guy talking about. So once I start hearing what he was talking about, man, he ended up offering me a full ride scholarship. So this was Indiana Tech, Fort Wayne, ended up taking that full ride scholarship. They just signed a big contract with Nike. So it just worked out. I ended up healing both hamstrings. I started just working hard there, and I was a top performer even there. So I was one of the fastest guys there at the school. Ran my first track meet, Grand Valley State. It went well. With that first track meet, I did win. So, and I got to actually race against Purdue. So, it was one of those things where I held that, I looked at that Purdue coach like, hey, hey, so that actually went well. But then again, life happens and life took another turn. So the thing that life happened is I ended up pulling both my hamstrings again. So this was right before outdoors. I ended up pulling both hamstrings. Once I pulled both hamstrings, like I said, I had to let that sink in. It was tough. It was tough because now I'm like, listen, I'm in college. I'm hurt again. What's going to be, the next step from here? Well, that next step was talking to my coach. Coach came down, pulled me in his office, and just told me, he's like, hey, listen, you already came in as a high risk athlete, and being a high risk athlete, and pulling your hamstrings again, hey, we're gonna have to pull your scholarship. So, they pulled my scholarship, took that scholarship away, and was like, listen, it's one of those things that, you work hard, you keep working hard, you can try to get that scholarship back, that next semester. I don't know if a lot of you guys know, which I'm pretty sure you do. College costs a lot of money, so I didn't want to be as far as in debt. And at the time, I was young and dumb. I'm like, man, I can go somewhere else. I'm gonna get better, and I'm gonna do just like I did that Purdue coach, and I'm gonna come back and beat your school. Well, that didn't happen. Came home, went back to South Bend, was going to Ivy Tech, started working at a factory. And one thing that I started seeing myself doing, I just started self-reflecting, and I just started seeing myself being stuck. I was working at that factory, and one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to be a slave to the system. And we'll kind of touch on that a little bit later, but as far as what I mean exactly that by that term. But like I said, I didn't want to be a slave to the system. I didn't want to, see myself working, 90, 100 hours a week, for a paycheck. I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to do that just because I seen better for myself. So at the time, because you was already in the Army, I had another cousin who was already in the Army. I see at the time, I think you were in Germany.
Yeah,
my other
Germany,
cousin, yep, my other cousin, he had a brand new Charger, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. I want to travel. I want me a Challenger. So, that's where, as far as the Army came about. And I just remember going down to the recruiter office, and I didn't know anything about the Army besides seeing my cousin. I know he in Germany. My other cousin got a Charger. So I took the ASVAB test and ended up passing. I had 2 jobs that came about. It was either being a military police or being a Calf Scout. So I just remember sitting there, and my recruiter was like, you want to be a badass? I'm like, yes. And he was like, you want to shoot the best weapons? I'm like, yes. He was like, you want to be a scout? And I'm like, hell yeah, sign me up. So that's how the military came about. Signed up for the military, and the military was a great experience. And I always encourage anybody, if you don't know what you want to do in life, don't think that college is actually the only thing that you can be able to do. There's other options out there, whether it's trades, whether it's going to the military, it's other ways to make money out there. So military was definitely interesting. I remember going to basic training, and first time being in basic, I was around a lot of different people. I mean, people from California, people from Texas, New York, Connecticut, places I never even heard of. Like, I didn't even know that was a place,
Yeah.
So it was great, man. I actually ran across a couple of people that never even seen a Black person before. So, it was interesting because it was like, it was 2011 at the time. I'm like, man, how is it people in the world that never actually in person seen somebody, of a different race? So, that really was an eye opener for me. Like, man, this is going to be a journey. But at the time, I'm looking at it as like, man, I can really network and meet a lot of people. So, the Army for me was, I started meeting people from this place. And I think that's what wrapped up and made me, really good as far as with sales. Because once you start talking to people that's different from Cali, you start talking to people from New York, and especially if you likable, you start building these relationships. You start, hearing their lingo. Now you can relate to any type of genre of people. And that's huge as far as in the sales world, because you need to be able to relate to as far as with people. And as long as you can relate, sales is one of those things, is opportunities is endless. So
no, that's a fact, cuz. And I want to unpack some stuff. Of course, going back to your injury, and then seeing that Purdue coach just leave. How you were just in the mindset, and not just the injury, but your future. You thought about that immediately. And I know there's kids out there that would have just been upset, just would have went crazy, or just, would have just lost their composure in that moment. But for you to actually just say, look, what am I going to do? Because this happened, and then just to see him walk out, that right there, from you dealing with that, and then just saying, look, I'm going to continue to move on and continue to better myself, to continue to get better. And then you find the next coach that's willing to take that chance on you, that opportunity on you, which You know,
Right.
that's one thing about you. You have opportunity that come to you, and then you're just capitalizing on them and you're building on them. You know, you're building relationships along the way. Your mindset's getting stronger. And that's one thing that, you know, I definitely didn't develop that at an early age. And man, that just I'm proud that you were able to develop that, because that right there is huge. And then for you to bring it into the Army and then take that time and say, look, I'm going to network it with as many people as I can in the Army. So now we're talking about you going into your car salesman, you know, that part, not even car salesman, just being a salesman altogether, utilizing everything you've done since 16 years old through the military, and now you're here.
Yeah.
Like, how did you capitalize on that?
You know, it was definitely like I said, it was definitely interesting. Definitely a roller coaster. But when I first got out the military, you know, I really didn't know what I was going to do. You know, I came to Indianapolis. I didn't know anybody here. I had an aunt who lived here. I got a couple cousins, you know, a few buddies that ended up going as far as what I grew up with. They moved out here. But like I said, going to the military, you lose a lot of those, you know, those friendships that you had growing up just because you lose contact. So, you know, coming here, I felt like I was alone. So I didn't really know what I was going to do. So got out the military and I was in the process of being a cop. So I started working security, was doing that at the hospital. It was great. At the time, that hospital was transitioning as far as into a police department. So, you know, I was going to take that route. I was going to try to be a cop. But right away, I learned that lifestyle wasn't for me. So once I learned that, I just tried to figure out some different stuff on what I wanted to do. I really didn't know what I wanted to do at the time, but I had a school reach out to me. It was HVAC, working on air conditioners. It was a school out in Dallas. I'm like, listen, I can take this, you know, go into a trade. If I go into a trade, learn this trade, I could potentially put myself in a position where I can possibly open up my own business, you know, where I don't have to work for anybody. You know, now, you know, putting yourself in those type of positions, you know, can take you to a whole different level. So that was my thought process at the time. Once I started to do that though, did a little research a week before I was actually going out to that school, because you'll never believe it, man. The school actually shut down because they said it was a whole fraud. They were taking military people's money, and yeah, that whole thing didn't work out. So I'm one of those people. I believe everything happens for a reason. So I'm just grateful that I didn't put myself in that position where I got scammed, you know. So didn't really know what I wanted to do at that time. So one thing that I actually do is I actually apply. I apply for a lot of jobs that I don't qualify for. So if I'm ever looking for a job, you know, I'm not going to apply for jobs that I qualify for, because, you know, I definitely think it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of jobs, as long as if they have qualifications on here, you don't necessarily need to do that, because you're going to learn a lot of the job in the job training. So, you know, I didn't have any sales experience. A lot of sales jobs, you know, they wanted you to have this experience or this experience. So, like I said, I just put myself in a position where if I apply to a job that I don't qualify for, if you call me back, I know that I'm going to kill the interview, where I'm going to make you like me enough where you're going to offer me that position.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. So I ended up applying for my first sales job. It was at Napleton Kia of Carmel here in Indianapolis. Met up with a guy named Marcus Stone. He was the general manager at the time. And, you know, he really believed in me. He was an Army veteran. I was an Army veteran. He had a daughter. I had a daughter. You know, we kind of just knocked it off right away. You know, and one thing that really stuck with me that he told me is like, hey, listen, you're going to make the most money you ever made in your life. And I can tell you that right now. And I can see that in you, you know, and are you ready to do that? And I'm like, oh man, he feeding me, you know, he feeding me this line. You know, he really trying to hype me up. You
You're
know,
through the recruiter stage, you're like,
right,
no,
right,
hype me up.
Right. Yeah, he hit me with the recruiter answer. You want to be a badass. So I'm like, all right. So, you know, I'm at the time like, yeah, you know, I'm here. But he was right. And I did. I made the most money I ever made in my life. And, you know, one of those things, just going back to it, was I just truly believe that journey, being in high school, being able to network as far as with these different athletes, being able to network as far as being in the military, and being able to talk to, you know, any type of, you know, regardless if you white, brown, green, orange, you know, being able to talk to any type of person, being able to relate, you know, can take you a long way as far as in sales. So for me, my sales journey was I was just trying to make people like me. You know, it's one of those things in sales. You know, sales is one of those things, you can buy anything off the internet. You could buy a car off the internet, you could buy a house, you can buy anything off the internet.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that, you gotta, be that used car sales. Because a lot of times when you think of sales, people always think of the used car sales guy who's trying to jack them over on price, who's trying to, get over on them, trying to make the most money. Well, that's not really sales. These, especially nowadays, what being able to have the internet right at the palm of our hands, it's different. You can price search anything. So being in cars in particular, cars is one of those things. It's car dealerships everywhere, so it's not necessarily that somebody just found the car at this cheap price and they just need to buy this car. It's just finding different ways on making people like you. So that's really one big thing that I really want to tell people is just being likable. As long as you can be likable, you can hold a conversation, you can be able to talk to somebody about anything, regardless of whether it's, you talking about a car, bring something up about, hey, I seen this, I was watching this show and I heard this good meal as far as with these ribs and this sauce right here, you should try it, or hey, have you ever tried putting strawberries in a jar? Just some random topic, being able to talk about different subjects and being able to give a little bit of information out can take you a long way as far as in sales. So like I said, being able to network as far as with the people I was networking with in the military, they really just instilled a lot of value as far as in myself, where I was able to talk about different stuff, which, like I said, just took my journey as far as it just took a different direction. I really didn't know what was going to happen. My first year ever in the car business, I made $100,000, which, like I said, going back to what Marcus told me at the time when he told me I was going to make six figures, I really didn't believe that was going to happen, and it happened. And it just didn't happen overnight. It was one of those things I had to stay consistent. You had to learn the product. You had to, build value, not only as far as in yourself, but just being confident, and that's one thing about, sales is always be confident in yourself, regardless if you don't know the answer to something, regardless if you don't think you're capable of doing something, as long as you are confident as far as in yourself, it'll take you a long way, especially in sales.
No, you're absolutely right. I do want to go back to when you had the interview with Marcus. What did you think that he's seen in you that just said, look, because like you said, you applied for this position and you knew you didn't qualify, but here this manager comes in, he's interviewing you, and he's like, there's something about him. I really think I know what it is, and what I do think I'm just gonna go into what I think it was. It's same like in the military. You have people around you that can talk a good game, whether they're experienced or not, but then they're just lazy, or they just don't know how to speak to people, or they won't do the work. And you've been saying that this entire interview is the work. But I mean, do you think that was what Marcus seen at that time, or was it something a little different?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, at the time, I was hungry. You know what I'm saying? In life, you just got to be hungry. Even if I didn't know anything about cars, it was one of those things. I knew that the cars are nice, they got features, but I didn't know anything about as far as selling cars. But I was hungry. I was interested. And it was one of those things was I was hungry enough that I didn't know anything, but I will learn. So I just kind of kept that mindset where it's like, listen, even though I don't know the answer to as far as everything about these cars, I'm going to put that work in that I'm going to learn, and I'm going to be able to, take those steps to be better than the next guy. It's going back to like as far as in high school, I wasn't necessarily always the fastest guy, but, that person who was faster than me, I always like, hey, listen, I'm coming for your spot. I'm coming for your spot. Yeah. And once I got that spot, hey, that next guy, I'm coming for your spot. I'm coming for your spot until I'm the top guy. So, and that's kind of the mindset I had. I just kept working until I was the top guy. When I first went to the dealership, my first month, I wasn't the top guy. So it was a guy there. His name was Daniel Hernandez. He was actually the top guy there. So I'm like, listen, I want his spot. I'm going to take his spot. And that's one thing that I told Marcus at the time is that, hey, I'm going to take his spot. And, he was winning all these contests and, car dealerships. This is what I love about sales. Sales is one of those things where you can make a lot of money and you can make a lot of cash. And, especially in the car business, they call these things called spiffs, or hat tricks, it's different things that they do, especially on Saturday. You sell 3 cars on Saturdays, it's called a hat trick. basically with that hat trick, they'll give you $200 cash at the end of the day. So,
Oh, wow.
I was watching this guy. He was just always leaving home. It was Saturday, and he leaving home with 400, a couple $100 in his pocket. I'm like, man, that's cool. I'm about to take that spot. And it's just one of those things, man. I just worked hard at it until I got there, and I wasn't afraid to go to Daniel and ask him, like, hey, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just watched him every time. What are you doing differently that I'm not doing? And one thing that he was just real personal. He was personal, and a lot of times people like that. I mean, in this generation, you got to get personal. As long as you can be personal, which as far as your customers, be personal at what you're doing, it can take you a long way. I always look at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is one of those places, it reminds me of the movie Pleasantville, for who, if you guys ever seen that movie. Pleasantville is a movie where, it's like black and white, everybody's happy, and, you drive down the street and it's like, hi, Mary, So I always go back to that movie, and because, like I said, being personal, man, and that movie just showed that, as long as you can work as far as with making people like you, you could be likable, it can just take you a long way. So some of those things, man, just like I said, it just helped me out a lot as far as with this journey.
No, I can fully understand that. That was one of the big pieces. Like I said, this should be the bulk of the episode, is just like understanding sales and what that means to a lot of individuals, because, we all get into that. Whether you would have been at school, finished, went into the career field, you probably would have been hourly or salary. Right. But to be, in a car salesman's position at this point, or in sales, now you're being commission based, and it's 100% of you. It gives you that, that opportunity to make $100,000 in a year. If you would have finished college after your track season or whatever would have happened, and you would have really went in that career, that first year wouldn't have been played out like that. 9 times out of 10. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen for a lot of people, but 9 times out of 10, when you come out, you have to go entry level because of what you spoke about earlier is experience. Sales allows you to get into the game to have that opportunity to make those 6 figures. So what, I say all of that because I want to wrap it into this question is, why do you feel adults, someone who's 18, why are they scared of it? Why are they scared to get in sales when you have this tremendous opportunity that, that's limitless at this point? Why do you think that?
You know what? I think a lot of times people are scared to be able to control their paycheck. A lot of times we all want to do what's comfortable for us. We all want to do, what's going to make us comfortable. A lot of times people don't like taking risks. And a lot of these successful people in life, they took a risk, and that's how you're going to find the best version of yourself, is when you take a risk. And once you take that risk, you get out of your comfort zone. That's when you get the best results as far as with life. So a lot of times, like I said, going back to that, being a slave to the system, we already are brought up. We're programmed a certain way. America programmed us to work and operate a certain way. So growing up, they teach you as far as you go to college, you go to high school, you graduate from high school, you go to college. After college, you go start this entry level job. And then from there, you go buy a house, and then you have a family, and you live happily ever after. Yeah. That's what they teach us. That's what, growing up, they tell you that type of stuff. Like, oh, this is what you want to do. But what they don't tell you is that you go to college, especially if you don't have some type of full ride scholarship. You go to college, now you graduate college, you're $100,000 in debt. Not only you're $100,000 in debt, but you're starting out at this entry level job paying $40,000 a year, $45,000 a year max with this 4-year degree that you're $100,000 that you just paid for. And now you're paying that loan back, and you're trying to work your way up, trying to make yourself relevant, trying to move up those different positions. Right. And all that money that you're paying on, that's all interest. You know what I'm saying? So now they got you. Now they got you right where they want you. You know what I'm saying? The banks got you, and they got you. Now you stuck 10, 15 years paying on a loan that, that took you 4 years to get. But what they don't tell you is that, you don't have to take that route. You don't have to do that. We live in a generation now where, a lot of places don't even teach you about trades. It's different trades that you can go into. You don't have to go to college to be successful. It's just not one of those things where you got to just go to college. College is not the only way you could be successful. You can get out of high school and go work a trade. You can go to do HVAC. You can go drive, be a truck driver. You can go be a carpenter. You can go do real estate. It's other jobs that don't require you to have a degree. For me, and this is just my mindset, a degree is just a piece of paper that just shows you know how to find an answer to something. If you don't know if you don't know an answer to something, you know how to find it. That's all a degree does. A degree is really nothing. Going into sales is one of those things where it's going to put you in a position where you're uncapped. And that's what I love about sales. And if you guys don't know what that means, I definitely recommend do your research as far as what uncapped means. I'll give you guys a little rundown. Being uncapped means that you control your money. You control how much you make. So if you're a hard worker, you are hungry, you really got drive, you're determined, you can make a lot of money. And that's what sales did for me. I control my paycheck. And that's what a lot of people are scared of. They're scared of, taking that risk, getting out of their comfort zone. As long as you get out that comfort zone, you start taking those risks, you can control how much you make. So for me, it was all about, hey, people don't like making phone calls. I'm going to make phone calls. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? Somebody's going to tell me no. Best scenario, somebody's going to tell me yes. So, I started, hey, I don't want to do it. Bring them on. I'll make those calls. And I started seeing, and it wasn't one of those things that I seen results right away because it took time. It's one of those things, practice make perfect. So it took time for me to start learning how to operate the phones, learning how to say the right stuff, because now, that just opened the door for a sale. And now I started seeing like, oh man, I just got a sale, off of me doing the phones. Then it became 2 sales. Now it became 3. Now it became 4. Now I started to see that people are missing out on opportunities because they didn't want to do, they didn't want to get out of their comfort zone. They don't want to do doing calls. So, hey, I did it. So I started picking up those 4 extra sales a month by just making these calls. So I'm like, man, now I'm realizing that, I just got to be different. I got to be different. And I got to do what the next guy isn't doing, So I started to see my money. I started to see my money change, and it's times where, you can go work a job, and like I said, going back to being a slave to the system, I can go work 80 hours, 90 hours, 100 hours and bring in, a $2,000 paycheck, 22, we'll say about 20, we'll say 2,400, you go work, $100, 100 hours with overtime, you bring in 2,400, that's at a factory job. You bring in $2,400 after taxes, you'll probably bring in roughly about 1,700. Always remember, when you start making over, $1,800-$1,900 on those paychecks, it puts you in a different tax bracket.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people got to realize. A lot of people don't know about those different tax brackets, but that's something also that sales taught me. It's about, once you start making more, the more you're going to get taxed. So, you start working those 100 hours, you busting your ass, you're missing out as far as on that family time, and you just made 2,400 after taxes, you got 1,700, which so a lot of people, that's great money, it's great money.
Yeah.
That's not bad money, but you think about the time, you think about the wear and tear that you're putting on your body, the missing family time. I'm huge as far as on family time and being with my family. So being in car sales, I learned that, listen, I can work 80 hours for 2 weeks and I can potentially make, $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000. Me being in sales, the biggest paycheck that I ever cashed out, one of my bonus checks, I cashed out a $12,000 bonus check. Cashing out a $12,000 bonus check, that just took a whole shift for me, where it's like, oh man, I can never go back to as far as working an hourly job. How can I go back to working an hourly job when I just made $12,000 working 80 hours, and this is all just performance based. It's all about performance. It's all about how you're going to perform. So,
well, I don't mean to cut you off, because I want to unpack something that you said. One of the big things that you said, because we asked that particular question where, why do you believe, adults don't take that chance, or they won't jump? And it does go back to what you're saying, back to that rat race, back to that, just that machine where you've racked up this debt out of school, or you've racked this debt out of high school, whatever you've done. Then you went, you might have got married, all that stuff starts to add up. So then now you can't take those risks. It really, it creates a, I don't know the word for it, but it basically makes a handicap. Like you can't do it. You're just so scared because you really can't take that opportunity, because these bills are just, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going,
Right.
But you said a big thing out of college, when that coach said, hey, you can work your butt off, get back into sports, and you might be able to, get that scholarship back at one point. You're like, nah, man, in between that time of trying to work there, I got to figure out how I'm going to pay for this. And then I got to take a student loan out. I'm not doing that. So you came out of college, no debt, and if you had any debt, it was a small amount that allowed you to take that risk. And I want people to understand that's one of the biggest things that controls us, to not take those opportunities. Like you said, like, look, even if this sales job doesn't work, I can at least take 6 months and really put effort into it. And if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. At least I took the chance. One of the biggest things on this show, the biggest premise of at least my story is I was 6 figures in debt. I had over $100,000 worth of debt. And this is why I was in the military, doing the dumbest things possible, because I knew nothing about money. Like I said, I didn't have the same mindset Ernest had. I didn't have that at all. I was just buying cars, doing this, doing that. And I wasn't able to say, look, I could take that chance to do something different, and that's just, it just wraps up to the point that you're talking about. Like, take that chance, understand what cap, not having a cap on your income is. Because sales job, man, that just sounds like where it's at right now, for a lot of individuals. But like you said, a lot of people are afraid to pick up that phone and get hung up on, get cussed out, or knock on that door and get the door slammed in their face. Like, that's going to happen. But you have to realize you only need 1 or 2 yeses. You need, that's all you need, right?
Yep. That's all. Hey, that's all you need. And once you start getting those yeses, that's what's just going to start keep building you up as a person, building you up as a salesperson. Is you get that yes, now it's like, oh man, I heard yes, and then next thing you know, you get 3 no's, you get another yes. And it's like, oh, dang, I got another yes. Now those no's start to become yeses, because now you're starting to fine tune and you're starting to sharpen that axe on, how to really be personal, really how to relate to get those customers to say yes. And
you know what? I heard my bad, because
no, you
I
go
heard
ahead.
A quote that somebody said about a salesman. They said your job don't start until like the 2nd or 3rd no. Like when they say no, that doesn't really mean no. Is that true?
It definitely is. Yeah, I can definitely see why they said that. Is because, like I said, a lot of times, you're just gonna get those no's, a lot. And for sales, that's gonna deter, a lot of people away, because they start, especially new people. I see a lot of new people. They get into sales, they never did it before. The first 4 people they talked to, it was like no. So now they're like, oh man, I ain't making no money. I need to make money. Because a lot of, in some sales jobs, you don't get an hourly rate. Like I said, this stuff is based off performance, based off what you sell. So, you get a couple no's, you go a week without selling anything. You're like, oh shit, I'm not bringing in no money. Now you get scared because, like I said, you $100,000 in debt when you got into sales. You got bills rolling around. You got life that's happening. You need money. So it deters, a lot of people get scared at that point. But like I said, I didn't understand, it was one of those things when I first started hearing those, it's like, man, am I not good at this? And then, like I said, I just had great mentors as far as in my corner, telling me, like, hey, listen, you're going to hear him. You're going to hear him. This is a part of the gig. Everybody's not going to tell you yes. If everybody told you yes, everybody and their mom would be doing sales. That's just it's part of the job. You're going to get, you're not going to be able to sell everybody. But once you start getting those yeses, like I said, you just start getting familiar with, as far as, your word tracks, what you're saying, you start, breaking that egg, where you can relate to somebody really quick. It's all about breaking that ice. You start getting comfortable as far as what you're selling. It can really take you to that next level. So like I said, it's just a lot of different ways, man. I just highly recommend, if you never tried sales before, don't be scared to get into sales. You can make a lot of money. It's one of those things that's definitely rewarding. You may not start out making, like I said, 6 figures right away, But as long as you work hard, you grind, you focus on why you're actually doing the job, whether it's for your family, whether it's for your kids, that's gonna outweigh those no's. Because once you start getting those yeses, it's gonna be like, oh man, this is really paying off, and then it's gonna start making you feel good about yourself. It's one of those things. Me personally, I like to when I'm looking good, what I'm saying, I'm gonna sell even better. What I'm saying. So you start making in that money, it starts building up your confidence. You start getting a little different walk to yourself, and people start seeing that. People will feed off that energy. So it's just all about positioning yourself, not giving up, networking with the right people. If you don't know, if maybe you're feeling low, maybe you're feeling down, a lot of emotions carries on as far as with sales, but you got to just be able to brush it off and go on to the next, on to the next person. And that's something that I like to train as far as my staff on now is, if you hear no, so be it. That happens. You're gonna hear those no's, but you brush it off and you are on to the next customer. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where, hey, they told me no, so what? I got this customer, they don't know me, I don't know them, but I'm about to sell the shit out of this product. I'm about to really show them, how this is gonna fit into as far as their lifestyle. And I'm gonna put them in a position where, they're gonna like me enough where they're not gonna want to tell me no. They don't want to go down and meet with Jim down the road. They're gonna want to buy from me. And then when they buy from you and you give them a great experience, guess what? They're going to be at the mall. They're going to be with their family at Thanksgiving dinner. And they're going to be like, oh, man, where'd you get that from? Oh, you got to go see Ernest. Ernest is the man. He did this, he did that. It's kind of like the story as far as with when you came over, cuz, and the art support. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that story.
I was ready to buy 100 of them things, man.
which that's currently what I do now. So I sell art supports. A lot of times people don't know, like they're like art supports, but it's a very rewarding job, and you start learning a lot where, somebody is, you just talking to somebody, they're like, oh man, my feet hurt, or oh, my back hurt, my knee hurt, and boom. Now I'm like, hey, listen, this is what you can do, to help your situation in that aspect. Now you start grabbing somebody's attention because, now you're just relating as far as to what they're going through. Now they're like, oh man, my knees hurt, my feet hurt. And I'm like, oh man, look, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? And now you just figure out different ways as far as, to help them in that type of situation. So,
like I said, man. I tell people, man, Ernie can sell salt to a slug straight up. This man is good at his job. Now, my thing is, because I want to wrap it up and move on to the next segment that we talked about at the beginning of the show. Now, you got an 18-year-old, he comes in. Let's have a scenario for 18-year-old and then maybe somebody in their 30s. They've never done sales. Like, how would you, train them or give them the motivation to do something like that? Like, now you're the mentor. What would you do? What would you say?
Oh yeah, man. And it's definitely a difference. It's definitely a difference having an 18-year-old versus having somebody who's 35, who already been in somewhat in sales, because it's all about how they're programmed. When you get somebody that's fresh, what I'm saying, who never did sales in the car business, they call these green peas. So green peas, brand new in the market. So, those are the best ones to have. When you are fresh in the sales, you don't have any bad habits at that time. So you're coachable, because you're really going to want to learn as far as, the job, so being coachable is going to take you a long way. So when I get somebody that's 18 years old, I'm just trying to build as much value into them as I can. Not only am I going to build value in you, but I'm going to let you know right away. I'm going to be real with you. You're going to hear no's. You're going to hear that. But how do you overcome that objection? When somebody tells you, oh, they don't like this, how do you get over that obstacle where, you can keep going on to the next customer and keep that motivation and keep that smile on your face?
Yeah.
Versus, somebody who's already been in sales, a lot of times, you get somebody who's been doing this. I sold beds, I sold this before. A lot of times they're not coachable, and you can't necessarily get them out of those old ways and old habits. Right. It's like an ego. It's like an ego thing. Once you, especially if you didn't have those right mentors at the time, they're like, oh man, you just trying to feed me a dream. I already know how the game is. This is not going to sell. That's why, as far as with the being 18, man, this is just a great field. We got so much, There's so much stuff that you can do right now as far as with the internet. You got so many motivational speakers out there. I mean, listening to Kill Procrastination. I mean, this stuff right here is amazing. I mean, I wish that I had a lot of this stuff when I first started my journey. Now I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of motivational stuff. So I just reckon, like, being 18 years old, if you can just start listening, listening and learning, reading different books, trying to read different objections, it can really take you a long way. Versus, like I said, you always have being 18, people love that. A lot of times you think, oh man, I can't go be 18 years old trying to sell cars. I need experience. You don't. They love it. Car business, where people, anything in sales, they love the younger generation because they know that they can train you, you're coachable, and you can make a lot of money at doing it, versus somebody who's who's 30, 35, they've been in the game for a long time. So, like I said, you're 18 years old, man. This is 18, 19, 20 years old, regardless. You're doing this job you don't like. Don't be scared. Take the risk. I mean, it can be very rewarding. Just know it's a lot of work. It is a lot of stuff that you're going to have to learn. But as long as you stay positive, you keep motivated, you understand the goal. You got to understand your goal. You got to understand why you're doing it. Everybody has a why, so as long as you can find your why and you can just every day just focus on your why, it can just, like I said, your opportunities are going to be endless. You will make a lot of money and you will go a long way as far as in sales.
No, that's a fact. And I like how you broke it up and you were honest because, I kind of assume that, like, if you're 30, you've already got life experiences. You made, the things that a car salesman or somebody trying to mentor you into doing this, you might not believe, or, because you've been burnt a lot, and now you're at this point, now you want to do sales at this late in the game. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt because he's not saying that you can't do it. He's just saying you have to come. If you're going to be 30, 35, you need to have an open mind. You need to be ready to be coachable, because then if you're not, then there's no reason for you to even get into the game. I mean, that's what I'm understanding from it.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, being at that age, like, you're right. It's not that you can't do it. It's just a lot of emotions come with it. A lot of emotions where you've been burnt with this job, you've been burnt with this. You're not necessarily seeing those figures or that money rolling in like you expected it to. And a lot of people right away, they get deterred. Once you get deterred, they're like, oh man, this ain't. Now you're not really, you're hesitant about what you're selling. So it just can play it can play a big role as far as on why you're not succeeding as far as in sales. Like I said, versus somebody brand new in sales, like I said, it's just a different ball game. It's a different ball game. So,
no, I feel that, and like I tell everybody on this podcast, when we first started this, man, you guys can get a lot of value from this. And I know you guys did. Please, like I said, put anything in the comment description. Make sure you guys subscribe for more interviews like this. It's very powerful. Like I said, for the true listeners and the people that watch this video, we've been getting into something nitty gritty. Now, this is strictly educational purposes, just strictly a conversation. You can apply this stuff if you want. You don't have to. You make sure you do your research on any and everything that I talk about. What Ernest have talked about today, make sure you do your research. But this is a transition that he's actually working on right now out of sales, and he's trying to do something more lucrative moving forward. So we definitely want to talk about that. And that's, investing, cryptocurrency. Let's get into it. Cause like, what are you doing on that side?
Yeah. So, you know what, like I said, and I always like to bring this up first, I'm not a financial advisor. Definitely recommend doing your research. This is definitely a lifestyle that is up and down. I don't recommend, like I said, if you're using your bill money to invest, I don't recommend doing that because, like I said, it is an up and down business, and it's one of those things where it can really hurt you if you don't know what you're doing. So recommend doing your research. But as far as with crypto, as far as with stocks, it's one of those things, really getting into it now real heavily. I'm just starting to learn a lot about it. It's one of those things. I started to invest back in 2016 when I got out the Army. It was just small little bets here and there. Was getting on Robinhood, kind of playing around with different options. But, now at this point, I just learned a lot just in that little short amount of time. So started to invest. I say my biggest thing that I learned as far as with stocks and crypto, I had the biggest eye opener, and this was here recently, probably here within the last 3 months. Yeah, all right. I learned something real big, that I wasn't doing, So one thing that I learned was I wasn't necessarily holding on to the stocks because I was always selling out. And that's one of my biggest failures that I had as far as with the market. It's not that I wasn't making the right investments. It's that I was selling out too fast because I was looking for the quick buck. I was like, oh man, I can keep this in here for 2-3 weeks and, see if it goes up. It didn't go up. I sold out. I'm looking at this stock right here. I'm doing all my research. I'm in, I put $500 in, and then I keep it in there for a couple of weeks. It don't go up. And I'm like, oh shit, let me sell out and switch it to something else that I think is going to go up. And I think that was the biggest thing that hurt me. So, I started learning, doing a bunch of research. I was one of those people. I got into Dogecoin real early in the game. 2.5 years ago, I got into Dogecoin. It was fluctuating a lot. It was one of those things at times where I had 200,000 shares. It was one of those times I had 150,000 shares, and I'm talking 200,000 shares at $200. You know what I'm saying? So I had a bunch of shares at the time. One thing I started doing is I started selling out. But if I just would have held on, if I just would have stayed consistent, if I wasn't spending that money that I wasn't supposed to spend as far as on those stocks, at the time, then, I would have had a lot more money. So I just, like I said, it's definitely very risky as far as with it, but you can make a lot of money as far as in the stock market. So stock market is one of those things. You can make $100,000. You can make more than $100,000. It's uncapped. It's an uncapped type of thing. It can fluctuate a lot. I'm real big into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, still in Dogecoin. Like I said, I'm one of those people where I got into Dogecoin early. You get a lot of people where, you even start speaking about Dogecoin and stuff like that. They're oh, this guy don't know what he's talking about. He's in the meme coins. But, it's one of those things that you got in early. Hey, you definitely got something.
You good. You got in early.
You're good. You got something in early. So, me personally, I'm still hovering around, 21,000 shares. I still got it at a great price. It's one of those times where when Dogecoin went up, it's a time where I had $16,000 that I could have cashed out as far as with Dogecoin, just off of my $300-400 investment that I put into it, but at the time I didn't take out. I didn't take the money. I didn't take the profit. And that's what I've been learning as far as in here in the last 3 months is.
On that part, was that because you didn't learn about the stop loss and what was it, limit loss or limit market? I forgot what those terms are called.
Right. Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And that's correct. That's one thing I didn't do. I wasn't learning. I didn't really know that aspect. I thought, it's going to hit $1. It's going to hit, I'm holding on to hit $1, but I wasn't taking profits. And that's one of the biggest things that was a learning experience for me is how do I make money, but also take profit? And that's the main thing that you got to learn. I recommend if you, one of those things, if you're starting to tap into as far as crypto, you're starting to tap in as far as the stocks, really learn as far as why you're doing it and what's the end goal. Are you just doing it to, just to have money in there? Are you doing it to keep them in there for 3 or 4 months, 3 or 4 years? What is your goal? So now that I'm learning about taking profit, so like I said, being in sales, going from sales, my next journey that I'm trying to pursue is I'm trying to be a full-time day trader. So I'm trying to, my next obstacle here is getting my Robinhood account to $25,000 so I could put myself in that position to be able to be a full-time trader. So yeah, definitely, like I said, make sure as far as, but do your research.
That's a fact. I appreciate that information because I tell you what, man, like you said, crypto is high. Is like the volatility on that thing up and down, up. It literally make you sick. I ain't gonna lie. Like I've caught myself trying to look at it every day or every hour, and it's like you have to just like you said, set it and forget it. Because I'm right now I'm like closer to 10,000 invested total in cryptocurrency. And, I'm like, dang. So some days I'll see 10,000 in it. Some days I'll see 15. And then some days I wake up and it's at 6. And I'm like, what the hell happened, man? Like, but it's not, one thing is it's not stopping me from investing because like you said, you got to continue to put money into it. You got to learn, like you said, to take the profit and figure that piece out. So, man, yeah, you're absolutely right. So when you actually get your goal of 25,000, I mean, what do you feel like your lifestyle is going to be at that point? Are you going to be just doing day trades first thing in the morning and you're done for the rest of the day? I mean, what's your goal? Because I know we talked about it briefly. Like, you said you're trying to hit just 6 figures, and this is how much money you need a day. Like, some people don't understand that. So
right,
I don't want you to blow their mind with that.
Right. So yeah. So basically, you got to, like I said, you just got to figure out why you're doing it. So for me, it's one of those things. You gotta paint that small goal first. You got to paint that in your head first. Get that small obstacle. So I want to make $100,000 a year. Okay. Well, how do I do that? How do I set that and put that as a daily pace? So like we were kind of talking about before, cause $330 a day. 5 days out the week. 52 weeks out of the year, you do that consistently 5 days out of the week, you're going to bring in $110,000 a year. So my goal is how can I make $330 on the stock market a day, Monday through Friday when the stock market is open, and how do I make $330 a day? So it's about just making trying to figure out those different plays, doing your research. It's one of those things where I see myself once I'm a full-time day trader is I'm going to be waking up in the morning time, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to have, as far as my coffee, I'm going to get my workout in, and I'm going to start just looking at the charts. I'm going to start trying to read charts. I'm going to start looking as far as what stocks are moving. A lot of research plays a role in it. I mean, you can find different platforms that can kind of help you out, kind of guide you through. I mentioned the one to you before. It's called Penny Boys. If you guys don't know about it, it's on Facebook. Highly recommend looking into it. It's one of those things, like I said, they're not financial advisors either, but they can help you and put you in, in that right, put you on the right track to start finding out these different plays. So, but like I said, because I want to be one of those people. I'm waking up, getting my workout, having my coffee, 10, 11 o'clock come in the morning, I want to be done. I want to already made my money for the day, and I want to be able to make money anywhere I go. I want to be able to travel regardless if I'm going to, to Starbucks or if I'm going to Florida, if I'm going to California. I want to be able to move how I want to move when I want to move. And you can definitely do that as far as with day trading. If you guys don't know too much about day trading, you do need $25,000 in your account to be a full-time day trader. If you don't have the $25,000 in your account, you can still day trade, but you only have 3 of them a week. So definitely know that. But it can definitely be very rewarding. It is one of those things, like you said, you can make $10,000 your account could be at, and then easily the next day it can drop down to $6,000. Been there, done that before. Like I said, my biggest eye opener was when Dogecoin, when it went up. Like I said, I should have at least cashed out. When it hit $16,000, I should have at least took, $14,000 out, left 2 in, and then I could have easily, when it dropped back down, I could have rebought in and then, built my position back up. But, I didn't do that. So now it's down. So, I'm just trying to get myself back up to that, that area. But like I said, I just recommend doing your research. There's a lot of good plays. We live in a generation right now where times is changing. Crypto is huge right now. Before, a lot of people didn't really know too much about as far as, crypto and stocks. We really didn't entertain it too much. But this is how the rich is getting rich. This is how the rich people are staying rich. They're making these early plays and investing in these different stocks like, solar energy, marijuana stocks, those things are huge. If you guys don't know, it's one of those things. The world is evolving. The world is always changing. How do you put yourself in that position to be able to change with the world? It's one of those things. I don't want to get left behind, and if you're not evolving, you're going to get left behind.
That's a fact, because it's crazy the conversation we're having, right? And I remember growing up as kids, our parents, what were they really talking about? Half the time they were in the parking lot, they were just messing around. But what we're talking about is it's crazy. And I think the biggest thing between our generation and our parents' generation is, of course, technology, man. Technology is it's exposing us to so much that I feel like our parents didn't have. Like, I catch myself sometimes, not trying to down what my father did, but be like, man, if you were just exposed to half the stuff I was exposed to while you were doing what you were doing, you know, you'd been in a whole nother situation. And that's the part that I don't think that the older generation understands. And we're kind of in their shoes. Like, we're now the parents. We're now those adults that can, you know, take that money and do things like this.
Right.
And I'm just excited to see what our kids do. You know, if our kids can bring this and take the same mindset we got, and that's what I'm excited about.
The opportunities are going to be, like I said, it's going to be endless. And that's a lot of times, man. You get a lot of these generations, especially the older generation. You know, our parents. You get 40 plus, you start working up that age range. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you got to be careful. You know, don't invest too much. Crypto, you know, that's not. But what they've got to realize is that we got to be able to evolve with times. You know, the world is only going to keep being more advanced. So how do we put ourselves in that position when the world is keep advancing? How do we advance with the world? You know, and that's what a lot of these rich people are doing. You know, they're investing in as far as in solar stocks. They're investing in as far as in these infrastructure stocks. And if you guys don't know, one thing that you need to be looking into, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but definitely looking as far as, you know, solar, and looking as far as these different things. If you guys don't know, look at Tesla. You know, Tesla's huge. You know, if you don't know about Tesla, it's changing the game. Not only is Tesla huge, I mean, they're in charge of SpaceX. You know, that's a game changer. You know, you got a spaceship that you can launch up to space, and instead of being a one and done, they're reusing this $1 billion.
That's why NASA didn't fail. You know, NASA go up and blow the shit up and come. They can't come back down.
Right. They land in the water, and that's $1 billion down the drain. Versus now they figured out a way to launch into space and literally fly back down and land at the airport like a regular airplane. It's amazing. That times is evolving. You know, why is it that you got Elon Musk? You know, if you guys don't know, this guy is so powerful, has so much money, he's about to provide electricity to the state of Texas. You know, so if you guys if you don't know, he's about to provide electricity to the state of Texas. You know,
not only that, because there's another play where I don't know if it was California or, well, no, there's a law, right? And this, I guess this kind of wraps back into you being a car salesman. Is I didn't know this until I did the research on it, but manufacturers can't sell directly to the consumer. You have to go through a third party. You have to go through those car lots. And Tesla's trying to get around that. And the way they got around it was they found Indiana reservation land that would adopt them. So basically they're allowing them to, you know, manufacture the vehicle on their land and sell it from the manufacturer. I mean, come on, man. These laws are too slow. They're not catching up to the times. In the cities, the states, they're losing money.
Yep, exactly. So, and, you know, it's one of those things. You got all these, you know, people are capitalizing on it. You know, these millionaires, they're capitalizing on it. You know, they're making this money. How do you put and that's one thing I just want to ask you, how do you put yourself in the position to capitalize off of that type of situation? How do you put yourself in a position to, you know, get into this company that just started as far as these charging stations? You know, that's going to be something that's huge, you know, looking into as far as the future. We all know that solar energy and, you know, and self-driving cars and, you know, all this different stuff. That stuff is about to happen. You know, cars are about to change, you know, as far as gas vehicles in the state of California by 2035, they just passed a bill that it's all going to be mandatory. You know what I'm saying? So crazy. Car dealerships, what do they have to do for you to be able to stay relevant as far as in the world? You are going to have to start making electric vehicles. What comes with electric vehicles? Charging stations. You know, Tesla ain't the only ones who are going to have charging stations. So how can you start finding out? How can you start, you know, doing that research to start finding which charging stations are going to be the next big thing, so you can start investing now? You can start putting, you know, $10, $5, and that's what a lot of people think when investing. You don't have to put $1,000. You don't have to put, you know, $100. $5 here, $10 here. You know, we all eat $10 every week, you know, regardless of how you look at it. You're going to blow $10 regardless if it's on food, your nails, something you don't need. You're going to blow that money. So how can you put yourself in that position to be able to invest small amount of money that can make you a lot of money, you know, later on?
You're absolutely right, cuz. And you know what? I want to leave it there, because that question, you guys need to answer that in the description, I mean, in the comment section. You guys need to understand that, because that's big, that's powerful. Of course, you guys need to find out what the next trend is. And I feel like, at least our generation, you guys understand what's going to be the next thing. Everybody has a flat screen plasma TV. Everybody's adopted a new app. Like, what you're going to be able to use in the future, like if this makes sense. So that's kind of like what you have to understand with investing. But once again, I appreciate your time, cuz I appreciate you coming on. We had to repeat this twice, 3 times. But
hey,
you've been
like I said, practice made perfect, cuz.
Hey,
That's all
man.
that matters. That's all that matters. So
that's a fact.
Like I definitely appreciate you even having me on here. Like I said, it's definitely an honor. Like I said, kill procrastination. Hey, it's one of those things. Like we talked about being the next big thing. This is it. Like I said, this is it. Definitely share. Like I said, y'all know anybody, especially, regardless of what age group, you guys got kids, you guys got nephews, your kids, definitely, like I said, teach them this stuff now, because you teach them this value, you teach them this stuff now. About time when they're 20, 30, 40 years old, they're having kids, they'll have something to pass down, and that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge.
And how do they follow you, cuz?
Yeah, you guys can follow me as far as on Instagram, Ernest B. Clark. Look me up there. You guys can also look me up as far as on Facebook, Ernest Clark. Like I said, don't ever hesitate. You guys can always reach out to me, even if you guys want just some info as far as on sales. Maybe you got questions as far as with sales, regardless if it's something as far as with, a question as far as with stocks, crypto, or anything. Just hit me up. I'm one of those people. I'm an open book. If you got a question, I'll talk to you. I'll relate. If we need to chit chat, we need to hit a Zoom call or something. Hey, don't ever hesitate. It's one of those things. Knowledge is power. Empower yourself.
That's a fact. And this episode will be out next week. We're going to go ahead and promote it all week so you guys can see this interview. It's going to be prepped and ready to go. But like I said, thanks again, cuz.
Yep, no problem, cuz.